again, it goes back to going and executing and pouring into yourself and not having that fear to failure. And if you do have fail, giving yourself the room to say, you know what, I learned X, Y, and Z from this failure. I can get to the next step.
Welcome back to Beyond the Norm podcast, where we like to have some fun conversations. I got Ian Horowitz here, who is one of my favorite people in the industry, one of the first people I met when getting into the real estate game. Ian, we met at a Tim Bratz pop-up mastermind. You weren't part of Tim's group. I wasn't part of Tim's group. We just happened to both be at the same meetup that time, and had fun hanging out with you, and we've hung out a couple times since at different events and whatnot, kept in touch. And so appreciate you coming on the podcast, and looking forward to everybody else getting to hear your story. So just why don't you start off talking a little bit about yourself, where you came from and where you're at now, and then we'll dive in.
All right, everybody, this will be a psychology session for me. No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, thank you for having me on. It's an honor. You know, we did connect early on. Usually the blue collar guys figure out who the blue collar guys are in the room, and they usually stick together. So they share good stories, and that's how we connected. Me, you, and John Farling, who I think you've had on the show or going to have on the show, and all three of us have stayed in touch. You guys got the Ohio connection, but either way. But with all that being said, yeah, my story is as humble as they get. I mean, I'll give you where we are today. We have almost 70 million plus in assets under management that we own and operate and directly control. But my beginnings are super humble. I mean, me and my business partner, we're firemen for the city of Baltimore. If you ever watch The Wire, it's all true, man. Everything from the drugs, the stealing money from our pension system, everything in between. It's all true. And then if you saw the riots, that's like where we worked. We were in the heart of West Baltimore, in some of the lowest economic neighborhoods in the whole city, let alone probably the whole country. And it was a life experience, and that's all I wanted to do. I'm 41 years old, graduated in 2001. What happens in 2001 is 9/11. I was already attracted to the fire department, volunteered locally at home. And I was like, man, that's the career I want to do. Cause I wasn't military bound. I wasn't police bound, firemen, usually a little rough around the edges. That's all I wanted to do. And me and my business partner and a few of our other friends got to execute on that dream. And we got hired in Baltimore City, and enjoyed that. But quickly did we find out that like taking a government job's cool, and you get the security of a quote unquote job supposedly, but then all hell breaks loose when the global financial crisis happens. And that's really where we had to find our own way and led us to real estate. And obviously we can dig in. I'm sure there's a lot there before we hit my real estate career, but yeah, man, that was really just simple dudes, just simple, barely out of high school firemen that have built this real estate company that we own and operate today.
Love it, man. And it's the American dream. And like you said, the blue collar guys, yeah, we kind of find each other, and I don't know what it is. It's kind of like, well, we were talking a little bit about hunting offline, and like when you find another hunter, like you have this common bond real quick of just something you have in common, or fishing or whatever. And I think kind of the blue collar background is a very similar thing. You just kind of, each other, at least know a good baseline of each other, moving in. So,
well, generally in the rooms, they're usually the one asking the common sense question, or no, the non-common sense questions are like, hey man, like I'm trying to figure this out. And then you got the white collar dudes, and they're like, I don't understand how building, and you're just like banging your head against the wall. It's like, if you can't estimate construction, you can't do real estate. I think that's a competitive advantage that a lot of us have that not a lot of people recognize. Is like, dude, we all have skill sets. My skill set is not taxes, finance, any of those other things. My skill set is these. Let's go out. We're going to work harder than everybody else. We're going to go and figure it out, because we weren't taught it. We weren't handed to us on a silver spoon. We got to go, mix it up with the boys and figure it out. And most of us need to get our asses whooped first to figure it out. But you know what? That's the learning experiences that allow you to succeed. And I'm glad that this is the path that we've taken to get where we are today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I wouldn't trade that background or that upbringing for anything. And it makes you like when you grow up getting your hands dirty, it makes it I don't care to get my hands dirty. I'm not above anything, doing anything, or it has been in the past my Achilles heel because I want to jump in and, swing the hammer again every now and again or get my hands dirty when now I need to look at more working from a higher view of the business, but it's still, like you said, invaluable skills that give us a competitive advantage. So,
Yeah.
but jumping in back to your story, leaving firefighting, getting into real estate, you said it was the great financial crisis, the '08, '09, that ballpark. That was a catalyst for it. Was there anything else like talk a little bit about how you made that transition and why you picked real estate and kind of how you got in there?
Yeah, so we got hired in '07 and '08 respectively. I don't know, I'm not good with words. Anyway, Dan gets hired '07, I get hired '08. And by the end of '09, we were starting to get furloughed. They were starting to close companies down. We just got out of the fire academy. They're talking about layoffs, and here's the other thing. We only paid into a pension system, no social security, no 401k guaranteed. Everything was by pension. Well, then you got Detroit literally just going bankrupt with their pension system. California school teacher systems having issues with their pension systems. Private industries like Bethlehem Steel are getting ready to go out of business and their pension systems are getting wiped. And you're sitting there going, man, I'm about to work 30 years in this city that, no offense, is like a half a step above Detroit. I love the place, but come on, man. It's like a half a step above Detroit the way it's managed. And you're telling me that I'm going to trust these people to have my money and I'm going to put every single dollar I can into this pension system where I'm required to. And at the end that it's going to be there. I was like, I don't know, man. Like that seems like a little odd. And you're sitting around the table listening to guys that, you worked in the 60s and you're still there 40 years later or 50 years later working both riots. It's like, dude, you worked race riots in the 60s and now you're working these riots in the early 2010s. I'm like, this makes no sense. I don't want to do that either. And another catalyst to all this was the other guy that says, hey man, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm gonna go work at Walmart or Home Depot. I'm like, well, why are you working so hard? Like all these things. I was like, man, that's so weird to me. And then side by side with that, the wife, guys, if you're not married yet, just a little hint, most women want to have kids by the time they're 30. It's like this internal clock that just blows up inside of them. And, my wife, we were 27, 28. She wanted to get married. So we wanted to have kids, want to have family. Starting to think about all these things. It's like, well, I don't want my kids to go to daycare all day. I want my wife to be able to stay home. What happens if I get hurt at work? Like, how am I going to take care of them? How am I going to provide for them if I am in the grave or completely incapacitated that I can never work again? It's like, well, I'll start a side business. Like I'll start a business. Miss Fireman have a business, but it's like, you imagine having, 30 landscape jobs open and I get killed and my wife has to worry about all that, because at that time I wasn't as mature as I am today to say, well, I could put people in place and she wouldn't have to worry about it. Now, all I kept saying was like, what can I do to make money while I'm asleep at work? And all I just kept thinking, real estate. If somebody's in my house renting it 24/7, I'm making money every single second of the day, whether I'm here or not, and I'm earning money. And God forbid something happens to me, my wife will still have passive income coming in. She can go get a property manager. She can sell it off. She can do whatever she needs to do to take care of that family. And that was really the catalyst to why we picked real estate as the industry to get into, was the quote unquote simplicity of it from the outside looking in. And that's how we ended up with it and started buying some single family rentals. And that's really how we got into it. But there was a lot of life factors that forced our hand. Yeah, remember, there's no overtime at work. There's no promotions at work. There's threats of layoffs. They're closing companies. They're jacking up how much we got to put into the pension system because they can't afford it. Like there was a lot of factors that forced our hand, and luckily we were able to recognize it and execute on it.
Yeah, no, dude, that's awesome. And we're in a similar but different economics, standpoint now with, there's things that are really great, but there's also things that seem to be a little rocky. And so for you, you look down the pipeline of life and we're like, what all those what ifs, and it kind of forced your hand. Plus, kind of the current situation of some things not you know, being ideal with the pension and at the fire department. What do you like? So it was a little bit of fear, a little bit of foresight. What do you think stops people like today? Like there's a lot of things, but in general, like if there's an Ian sitting out there today listening to this, maybe they're not a firefighter, maybe they're in a different scenario, but they've thought about these things. Like what's maybe some advice or maybe some things that they should consider in taking a step of faith into something new?
I think a lot of it revolves, and I just had this conversation with some people the other day at a local firehouse. They were saying, "Hey, like there's a lot of turmoil around here, and like we can't figure out what's wrong with our culture." And I said, "Well, people don't have the ability to fail or make a decision or fail forward." And I think that's the same thing when it comes to investing in real estate or investing in a business, let alone investing in yourself. People are scared of the change and the failure. Listen, if you buy a piece of property and you fail and you lose money, like it is what it is, but you're sitting there telling me you're willing to bet on somebody else. And look, I love Elon to death. Like, please, him and Vivek, like, go fix our country along with everybody else that just got elected. I don't want to make this about politics, but think about this. Everybody's willing to give these guys your money in the stock market. But who's to say Elon, like, you know, is this company profitable? Nobody knows. People are just buying and trading the stock and, well, it's going to go up. And it's like, you're not afraid to fail, but what if Elon fails and then you fail, right? Like you're relying on somebody else, and people don't want to trust themselves. They don't want to pour into themselves to take that next step. And for whatever reason, it was deep rooted inside of me to say, this is what I said. My credit score is like 5 something. I don't know how I'm going to do this deal. I have 15 grand saved up in the bank. I'm at that point, I was like 4 years into my career, and I said, fuck it. If I fail, go bankrupt, lose everything, I'm in no worse position than I am today. And I have the next 26 years to figure out how to pay off all this shit that I just screwed up. And I'll figure it out somewhere along the line. Who cares? Just go do it. And yeah, dude, look, it's easy for me to say now. Like, it was such a simple answer. No, I sat around that house pacing around every napkin I could find. I was like, well, if I could do this, and then I'll do like $400 a month, and $400 a month will do this for me. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Like, I got to do it. And then like another day I get out another piece of scrap paper and I do it over again. And I talk to my wife, talk to everybody, and then here I am sitting in a firehouse full of type A personality dudes. You're an idiot. You see all these slums we go into, you're going to be a slumlord. And I was like, well, no, not actually. Like, I've done my research. I'm going to do this the right way. Oh, this guy at this firehouse fucked up, and that guy over here went bankrupt, and this dude over there. And it's like, if I listened to all these dudes, I wouldn't be where I am today. And look, you have problems inside of our business. That's what we do every day. We're here to solve problems and execute and grow. Nobody ever calls to say hi. And again, it goes back to going and executing and pouring into yourself and not having that fear to failure. And if you do have fail, giving yourself the room to say, you know what? I learned X, Y, and Z from this failure. I can get to the next step.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. That's a book right there. And I agree. Like, so many people are afraid to bet on themselves. And until you get so tired of the nail you're sleeping on wherever you're at, and just be willing to be like you said, F it. I'm gonna go out, and worst case scenario, I go bankrupt or I lose this house or whatever, but you have the rest of your life to go back to the firehouse or go get another job and work that off. But so many people, it scares so many people. And you said it best, like, we're willing to put our faith in a boss or a company or Elon Musk or somebody else, but we're so scared to put our faith in ourselves, when in reality, and like, I know you would have same stories. Like, my first deal, I was scared. Like, I wanted to back out right away. I got contract and I'm like, wait, what do I do? I shouldn't have done this. And I learned so much through that. And there was things that went way better than I thought, and there are things that went worse, but guess what? I learned from it. And the next deal was like, it was no big deal. And then you get into bigger ones and all that. We can go there, but
well, here I'll give you an example of my first deal. Like I said, my credit score was like probably 580 something. I had a pretty rough 15 to 25 years old. It was a turbulent time for me. And I had a typical male, whatever. I screwed a bunch of shit up. It is what it is. And this job actually provided me structure, consistent pay that allowed me to start bailing myself out. Okay, cool. And I remember the first deal. I read this book. It's called the Section 8 Bible. I still have it here. And I read that book, and I ran into a dude at this event that I happened to go to. And this guy was like, every word out of this book was like exactly what I read. I was like, holy shit, dude. And I was like, hey, man, sorry, I don't mean to curse on your podcast, but
No, dude, you're fine.
uh, uh, I think it's a sign of immaturity, they say. But anyway, whatever. One day I'll grow up. Anyway, or lack of intelligence, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, but so I go and talk to this guy, and I was like, man, he like read word for word out of everything out of this book. Like, and I would challenge him on stuff, and he'd be like, no, do it like this, exactly what the book said. I was like, all right, dude. And look, he had a knack for, it was such an easy icebreaker for me to be like, yeah, I'm a fireman for the city of Baltimore. Oh my God, appreciate what you do. This guy was a New Yorker, lived 9/11 in New York City. So he's like, there was a little bit of a connection there. And, you know, so I started building the rapport with the guy, and he's like, look, if you actually want to do this, call me up. And I went home and told my wife about it. She's like, look, if you think it's right, the money in the bank's equally as much ours. Like, let's go do it. So I called the dude. I said, hey, man, really want to do this. Went out, shadowed him a little bit. And he's like, I got this deal. It's 20 grand or 25 grand. I think I paid 25 grand for it. I didn't know what a wholesaler was. I didn't know what hard money was, except for what was written in this book. I said, okay, dude, I'll do it. He goes, well, how are you going to pay for it? I said, I have no clue. So I start calling every hard money lender that I know, or like that I could Google and find, and some dude finally bit. He's like 16 and 6. And I was like, okay, all right. What am I going to say? So get the money from him. I buy the house, and I'm like, now what? Like, it's like, you've done construction projects, but I'm like, oh shit, like I'm like really in charge. This is on my back. Like I really have to do this now. And I was like, uh-oh. And like I was too cheap. So like I did a lot of the work on my own, but like hired the sheetrockers or the tradesmen to come in. But I did a lot of the finish work, a lot of the demo work, some of the plumbing, whatever. I didn't do any of this right. Just to be honest, like it wasn't, whatever, it got done. Maybe it's the 25, 30 grand. I really don't know, because we weren't accounting that good then, but maybe I'm in this thing for all in for 55 grand. But I can tell you what, when I got to the end and I got that tenant for $1,250 from a subsidy program that was paying 100%, I said, oh my God, because even then I was still cash flowing like $400 or $500 a month. That was a whole overtime shift. That was almost a whole week's worth of pay for what I was making at the time. I was like, oh my God, it was like crack. And I said, how do I do the next one? And I bought house 2 by doing a bunch of side work and grinding it out to stack more cash to go buy house 2 6 months later, before I ever refinanced house 1, because I found a new hard money lender. I buddied up with the guy that I learned from. I was doing landscape jobs, selling my soul just to make extra money to pour it all back into this next house. And I was like, why learn this on house 1? Let's go do house 2. And then I refinanced them, got my credit score up, refinanced those houses. I think I got 3.125%. Had the houses in my personal name. Dude, I didn't do any of it right. You know what? I did
You
it.
did it.
And I lucked out that I had success. House number 2 is a success. House 3 and 4, little weird, but dude, it was like, dude, you did the first house. You got that first check. Like the problems that would come in, you're like, oh yeah, who cares? You got a clogged toilet. I'll be over in a minute. It's like, and you're so happy to have these problems because you executed on something, and you made it real. You made what you talked about for the last 6 months come to life. And that was so cool and so powerful.
Yeah. No, it builds that confidence to just stack those wins where you're like, you feel like you can run through a brick wall after you do a couple things like that. And I want to touch on, you said you found a guy at a meetup or an event, and he kind of helped you out a little bit along the way with advice. How important do you think it is doing something new, specifically real estate, like early on, to actually not even just early on in my experience, but along the way of finding that mentor slash, guy that's a couple steps above you, that's been there and kind of helping you along?
Yeah, I'm a guy that, like, I'll talk to the wall if I could, so it's easy for me to break ice with a lot of people. It's also hard for me to, sometimes pay for some of the consulting or mentorships, which I get people do. I mean, we have a mentorship group that, we charge people because respectful of time, but the more you pay, the more you'll retain. With that being said, it really just comes down to finding commonality, and it doesn't always need to be a paid mentorship. It could literally just be a friendship that you can bounce ideas off of. My co-host on my podcast is Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers, and we have similar size companies, and we just talk about business literally every morning, pretty much at 8 o'clock. You can almost guarantee that me and Jason are talking for about an hour and just talking shop. And like sometimes mentorship comes in unique forms. It can be a paid platform because you're paying for the how.
Mhm.
There's a ton of information on the internet. You can go to YouTube University, find out everything you need to know to get involved in real estate, but most people are paying for the implementation piece. And so mentorship comes in a lot of different ways depending what you need. If you need the info, maybe it's free and you like hearing what Jimmy or myself has to say, and you'll listen to all of our podcasts, consume the content you need, and you'll figure it out and you get to the next level. Or you might say, "Man, I'm ready to do this, but Jimmy, can you hold my hand?" Or Ian, "Can you hold my hand
Yeah.
to go do a commercial deal?" Like we can do that.
Yeah.
Then the next step above that is, "Hey, Jimmy, what you got going on?" "Oh, dude, you're still buying 5 units." "Well, I'm buying storage facilities. Like this is what I got going on." "Oh, that's sick." And then we trade ideas, and like mentorship comes from all aspects, and it's really what you want to learn. And some people learn better in certain environments. You need to identify what works for you.
Yep.
Early on, for me, it was consumption of anything I could get for free because I didn't have money. After that, it turned in, well, what can I pay for to learn because I want to get the hacks. I want to get to the next level as quick as possible. And then now it's a lot between paid and being in rooms with the people that I want to be with and having the network and the friendships that I need to say, what's coming down the pike? What's your expectation? What are you seeing? How can I earn and learn? I'm sorry, not earn. How can I learn from my friends to say, all right, all these details are coming in. Let's get to that next level.
Yeah. No, man, that's awesome. So you bought those first 4 or 5. Kinda talk about your journey after those first 4 or 5, maybe higher level on where you're how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, we took an interesting journey. I did 10 houses on my own. My business partner was doing like side electric work for me. And I just remember him one day, like, he's like, fuck this. Why am I working for Ian? And he went out and learned how to start wholesaling. And, we connected on a few deals and he called me up. He's like, hey, man, like, I want to do this package of houses together. It was a flip, selling off two turnkeys and selling a wholesale deal. And we made 150, 160 grand total off the whole package. And it was so cool. And, we grew up together and we said, well, I said, can you do this again? He's like, yeah. So he found us another deal, flipped another house 6 months later. And I was like, yo, dude, like, this is sick. He's like, I can find inventory. We can do something. And I said, well, you go find the inventory and I'll go find us money. And that's what we did. And we flipped a bunch of houses and then we, built a big single family portfolio, ultimately allowing us to get into commercial real estate. But some learning lessons we had along the way was like we learned about partnerships, we learned about raising capital, we learned about what we like to do and not like to do. We learned about hiring employees and building systems and processes that we still refine today to get us all to these next levels. And everything we were doing was almost practice for like the day that we got the phone call to say, hey, you want to buy this 76 unit apartment building and the lady's going to owner finance 90% of it to you. And we're like, wait, what? Like, well, we've done 76 houses. We can handle this. We've done owner finance deals. I can handle this. I've borrowed money from my friends and family. Like, how can I get them to co-invest with us? And it was like everything was a natural progression to get to
Yeah.
be able to handle this grand slam. And too many people want to do the grand slam because that's all you see on the internet. Oh, dude, this dude did this deal and made like, and look, go to my YouTube channel and you'll see it. I talk about all the massive wins. I try to talk about some of the problems and losses and scrapes and singles that we've had along the way, but we did a lot of singles to hit a grand slam. And that's really what happened in our path. And just to give you colors, like I bought my first houses from 2012 to 2014. We teamed up in 2014, and then we didn't buy that 76 unit building until 2020. till 2020. Oh, it was 2020 because it was COVID, right before COVID. We settled in the fall of 2020. Um, and so, I mean, dude, that was 6 years of grind to get to where we were comfortable to buy a $5 million asset, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So many people forget the 6 years in between, like you were saying. They see the, overnight success that happened six years later. Not to mention, it was the couple years even before the 6 years of you doing stuff, of getting that mindset of like, I'm gonna take matters in my own hands. I'm gonna, take charge of my own life and bet on myself. There's a year or two of, at least for me too, of that mindset to then going out, taking action on it, and moving forward. And I have a similar story as yours. And it didn't happen with a 76 unit. It was just that progression though of, okay, I'm going to buy a couple duplexes, and then you're like, well, wait, if I can buy these duplexes, I can buy quads, or then you find a 10 unit or a 12 unit, and then you just keep stepping up. So how did you get into storage then? Where did storage come into play?
Yeah, so we were able to buy that 76 unit apartment building. We raised $1 million for it. And, a lot of like what you were just talking about is like people are watching. Everyone wants to talk shit, but people are watching. And as you start to have success, people are like, yo, I want in, yo, I want in. Well, and it's like, okay. And, we bought that 76 unit apartment building and it went well. And the problem was we couldn't find other inventory that met the similar criteria. I mean, we're talking, this is when people are buying 4 or 5 cap rates on apartment buildings, and this is only a few years ago, right? Like, I'm like, I don't get how people are making money. This makes no sense to me. And I just said, well, we can't do this. And we also, at that time, were experiencing a lot of landlord tenant rights issues during the COVID period. We're in a very liberal city. Just it is what it is. And they weren't releasing COVID money. The tenants had all the rights during this time frame, and it made it a really tough operating environment. And we said, well, how can we diversify our portfolio? We had bought an apartment building in West Virginia, couldn't find any other inventory. And we said, well, we want to buy more commercial real estate, but like, how do we buy it in areas we want to operate in that are more business friendly, an asset class that's like less tenant friendly, it's more B2B, it's cut and dry. And that's how we ended up on storage and industrial space in general. It's more attractive. It's more of our tenant base. It's more of like who we can deal with. It's pretty transactional. When we're dealing in the industrial space, we're dealing with tenants that are similar to us, that whole blue collar conversation that we had where, they're running their businesses from your storage units or your flex space. And that's really what led us down that path. Was it allowed us to get out of this environment in Baltimore City and Baltimore County that was really the state as a whole, and the asset class as a whole was so tenant friendly. And I know we're recording this like post election, but even with everything that's happened in the elections, I still think you're going to see a lot of pro tenant stuff just because affordability is down. They can't afford to have another global financial crisis, right? Like, so there's always going to be inflation and protection in that market for tenants because it comes back to housing, and people do want to see people stay in good quality housing. And I think that's the trouble. And you gotta remember, multifamily is super safe. Like, it just is, because people need a place to live. That goes side by side with this tenant advocacy side of it, is that it's going to be a hard asset class to compete in. It's already gone through a massive market compression from private equity firms and family offices. Like, I can't compete with that.
Yeah.
But I'm also not willing to go buy a 100-unit building in Oklahoma or Ohio because I know that what it takes to operate residential real estate, and this is probably a limiting belief, don't let me affect you. But for me, I just would watch people come to Baltimore from New York, DC, Philadelphia. They'd come in there and be like, Baltimore's a great market. Or you probably saw it up there in Cleveland. Cleveland's a great market. They have no clue about Cleveland. You have no clue about Baltimore. It's got such nuanced tenant laws that it's like, I don't know that I can trust a property manager to run my properties right. And that's probably a control limiting belief issue for us. But that's why we didn't continue down the multifamily path out of state, because it gave us agita. But it did allow us to go and buy other commercial assets outside of our state that were big enough to allow our friends and family co-invest and co-lend with us.
Yeah. Nice. A storage facility around here in Canton, don't you?
We still have a partnership with a friend of ours that we have a storage facility up in Canton, Ohio.
Nice.
It does pretty well. It's a nice little facility, but again, there's a prime example. Like, even though it's a storage facility, like, there's room for expansion. Well, we got to navigate every little bit of like the nuances of Ohio law to do an expansion versus
Right.
if it's in Baltimore or Philadelphia. Like, I can tell you what to do tomorrow because I have all the resources.
Yeah.
One challenge of operating assets outside of your home jurisdictional territory is the local law nuances. And you really need to understand that. And you really need to understand the submarket. On a map, Canton's like, oh, football Hall of Fame. All right. Meanwhile, there's probably some nuances to where our facility is in Canton that I might not know of, but that you're much more in tune with because you're closer to it. And you
Right.
feed the local news every day. Your Facebook feed, your Instagram feed's filled with local news.
Yep.
You can keep track of these things. I don't have that competitive advantage that you might have, but that's what made us so successful in Baltimore. It's actually been a company shift that we're making over the next 18 months is to divest our storage assets and bring all the money back home into our little blue ocean. Because what we realized was we actually are the market experts. We understand these submarkets that it is our own blue ocean in our backyard. Meanwhile, we were searching for it all across the country. Stupidity on, not stupidity, but learning lesson on our part that we can now go back and execute on for the long term.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. That's what kept me, and I agree with you. It can be a limiting belief, and I think it depends on your team and what your goals are. But all my multifamilies within a 30, 40 minutes of me right here. So I'm right in between Akron and Canton. Everything's, the suburbs of Cleveland to the Canton area. And I know that market, I know the submarkets, and if I need to, there's properties I haven't been to, in the last year, but if I have to, I could drive there if I want. And I don't know, that's probably, like you said, a limiting belief, and not that I would have to, but I know all that stuff, and there's this comfort with that.
Yeah, and there's a network aspect of it. There's a knowing your backyard. All right, well, so and so grew up here. Let me call him, or I got this contractor that does a ton of work out that way. Like, that's where a lot of the advantage comes from. And I just look back. Like, if you look at our success trajectory, it was we operated really well in Baltimore City. Well, why did we operate really well in Baltimore City? Put two and two together. We listened to the radio every day. You'd hear the shootings, the fires, the car accidents, the whatever's going on the radio all the time. Like, oh, that area's getting bad, but these guys used to go to a lot of fires. Now it's slowing down. Well, what's going on? You start looking at the maps. You're like, oh shit, everybody's buying over there. What's going on? And we kind of had that internal knowledge before everybody else. And when we went and started to go buy storage, yeah, it's a great asset class, but like, gave up some of that competitive advantage. I also gave up like the ability to instill our company culture. We have 7 employees local to us that manage our residential real estate portfolio local to Baltimore. And they understand we are in a get shit done mindset. Whereas trying to instill that same company culture where I'm only seeing you once a quarter, once a year is hard. And yeah, you can manage the task list that you see on whatever platform you're doing to manage it. But in the end, like, nobody's there. Like, they don't have to worry about our operations manager swinging by and saying, well, why'd you do it like that? Or why is this still wrong, even though you told me it was fixed? And that's something that we've been working on, trying to reinvent on how we're going to navigate that and keep that in check. So again, well, you know what? We've hit our time horizon on the investment. We'll execute on it. We'll sell it off. We'll make money for our capital investors and bring that money back home, and we'll find things to deploy it on here locally. And I think we can execute. We can execute from afar. We can execute on an even higher level local to us.
Yeah. Nice, man. That's awesome. Great stuff. One thing I want to go back to and touch on, because this was always a big one for me. And you had kind of mentioned when you were talking about going out and flipping a house or buying a house to rent, you had a lot of guys talking shit to you in the at the firehouse and telling you why it wasn't going to work and telling, hey, Johnny tried that over here and he lost money. Why do you think it is? Like, one, why do you think it's like the people closest to us? Because I had the same thing, and I still have it, coming from different people, but it's like friends and family and people that kinda know you, they're the ones trying to, like, keep holding you down, from going out and doing something, and then, like, how did you personally just overcome that? Like, what were some things you had to, like, maybe tell yourself or to get over that, like, just blocking them out?
Yeah, I'd be interested, how much of this was, you know the answer to, and if we had the same answer, but a lot of it comes to jealousy. "Oh, shit, Ian's about to outgrow me, like, is he still gonna be my boy? Like, yo, if he has all this money, is he like, we still gonna be boys?" And it's like, "Dude, money doesn't change me. Like, we're
Right.
still bunkies, like, we can still talk." Like, family members are like, "Yeah, well, Jimmy's this kinda guy now because he owns all this real estate." No, nothing changed. Your view of me changed because you're making an assumption with some disconnect you have with money or success, or you're just straight up fucking jealous. Like, that's it. So I don't mean to curse again, but
Yeah. No,
it
dude.
just pisses me off because a lot of it revolves around jealousy and people try to tear you down because they don't want to out succeed you. For me,
Yeah.
and this happened, dude, this happened with me, with my brother. It happened with me, with my wife for a little bit. It's just like, you literally just have to go like this and just say, "All right, guys, like, thanks, but cool." And look, there's polite ways to do it. "All right, man, thanks. Thanks for the insight." And you just smile and you keep it going and you got to push and you're racing your own race. A good analogy, and if you're into, one time I was at this mastermind and we went and did go-kart racing and I said to the guy running the event, I said, "Do you realize like how much of an analogy this is to like everything we do?" He's like, "I don't get it." I was like, "You're out there, you're riding this track and all these other people, hopefully you're doing the passing, but you're either passing people or you're getting passed."
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is everybody's racing their own lines to make the pass, to go past the person, to get quicker. And I just thought it was so interesting. But that's the same thing in life is like
Yeah.
these dudes are the accident on the side of the road. And if you keep looking at that accident, you're going to smash into that wall or that accident with them, or you're going to say, "Oh, cool, recognize and keep moving and turn to the side." So it really just comes down to having the maturity level, which has taken me a long time to get. Um, and just realize you're racing your own race. I was talking to Jason this morning. Like I said, we talk almost every day, and we were bullshitting about like what number do you need to retire, or whatever. And he's like, I had a thought about this, and I had a similar thought. He's like, my goal is, let's just pick a number, 10 million bucks over this many years. He's like, I've been in business for this many years. He's like, 10 million is like such a small number. But then he's like, well, yeah, it's a small number compared to a Jeff Bezos, but it's like still insanely good. But that was my goal. And I think really just aligning your goals, knowing what you want and being like, "Hey man, if you guys want to tear me down, that's fine. But like, hopefully I have success and I'm going to bet on myself and keep grinding it out and just run blockers." And you know what you get to do at the end? Those same people are the ones that are going to come ask you and be like, "Yo, how'd you do it?" And they're
Yeah.
never going to give you praise. They're just like, "Yeah."
No.
So like, how'd that work? And you're like, "Okay, well, it worked like this, and this." And if you always approach it from like a positive mindset and not like a FU mindset and just being
Right.
like, "Yeah, I'm happy to show you, dude. Here, this is what worked for me. Hopefully it works for you. And if you need help, I'll find a way to help you out. But if not, go do your own thing." And most of these people aren't taking action. It really is just, they just want to shit talk because they don't want to see you succeed.
Yep. No, man, I had a spot on my experience has been spot on with yours, and yeah, had to block it out a lot. Like, at first, it like, I'd heard people talk about and read in books that, like, people aren't gonna be for you, and, I kinda never really made much thought of it until I started getting some of those comments, and it was like, "Wow, like, this is all real." Like, you don't have like, you're going it alone, and you find people like we found, we meet up and we can talk about it, and it's, like, encouraging. It's like, "Oh, Ian's gone through the same thing I've gone through," and it kinda helps you get, keep going when you think, "Am I crazy?" But I'm with you. I put the blockers on, and, it amazes me, though, how many people, they might be like, "Oh, that's cool," but how many people haven't asked yet, and, like, there's a lot of people that aren't, they you can they talk to you, but they don't like, "How'd you do it, man?" Or you try and talk to them, and that's one thing I've done is just I've kinda shut down. I just don't I try not to talk about it much because It's kind of like evangelizing, and somebody just doesn't want to hear it. But if somebody talks to me, man, we can talk shop all day long.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's where that like rub comes of jealousy, or people don't want to see you succeed. Because like, well, if you do talk about like wearing your heart on your sleeve and be like, hey, this is what's working for me, and you literally want to tell everybody, but then the dude that's got to go back to work on Monday because you're at some family party, he's like, "Dude, Jimmy's going to the Virgin Island. Yeah, he's going to hunt this weekend for elk. Guy just lives a crazy, does whatever he wants, whatever. He doesn't get what hard work is. Meanwhile, they don't see what you're doing on in the background. And a lot of that just comes from, you want to tell everybody. That's my problem. I would literally want to tell everybody what works for us and like go do it. I tell all of our capital investors, hey man, you might co-invest with us, but go buy a piece of real estate. I want to see you have success. Like, I love it. It's the best asset class in the world. But then other people don't want to hear it, and you got to know when to turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah.
And something else that worked for me while we were talking about this is I have a journal, and it worked really well for me early on, and it's worked well for me again. And if you can't, you might not be able to see it, but it's called I Want Journal.
Yeah.
And I remember early on, I would write down, I want to retire by the time I'm 40. I want to retire by the time I'm 40. I want to own 100 houses. Well, dude, like looking back on it, I didn't realize this till I was recent. I was like, oh shit, I retired at 39. I had 100 houses. I had all these different things that I remember writing down. I was like, well, that worked. So I started doing, and I want, because my wife one day was like, oh, I saw something on Instagram says you should do, manifest everything I want. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I got this new notebook. So I started doing, I want. And what's crazy, and I'm going to connect this to like a personal experience, is I started doing my own I want journal again. And what it does is it gives you clarity, and it gives you, well, why do you want $10 million? And I get to write down, I want $10 million because it'll provide abundance not only for me, but for my family and all my coworkers and co-investors and co-lenders. And if they're happy, I'm happy, and we're all happy, right? And I get to write that down in here every single day. And it worked, right? I wrote down in my journal early on, leading up to the White Marlin Open, I said, I want to catch a winning fish in the White Marlin Open, and it'll bring abundance and joy. It's something that we all want to do, and I can't believe it. And I'm so excited. I really, really want to do this. And the day of the fishing tournament, this is the World Series of fishing. And I know we're talking about real estate, but this is a fun story.
No, I want to hear it.
And it's like the World Series of fishing, right? And there's a storm coming up the coast. My insurance agent who we fish with is like, I can't take my boat out. I was like, dude, this is my week off for my kids. Like, I love offshore fishing. We have to do it. So I start going on Facebook. I find a boat, get down there. We literally register at like 4:45. Registration closes at 5. We get in. And it was like when we walked in to register, like you tell everyone was like kind of laughing at, like you felt like people were laughing at us. We're like, oh, you're with so and so, captain. And it's like, shit, did we just piss 30 grand down the drain? It's like, all right, whatever. Be clear, we spent 30. Most people are spending like 120 to get into this thing. Like Michael Jordan comes and fishes it. All the premier Under Armour sends a boat. Everybody, like Hawk, all these big companies.
Yeah.
So, just remember, in my journal, I kept saying, I want to catch a winning fish in the White Marlin Open. Well, the winning fish as a white marlin pays $3, $4, $5 million, depending what you bet. So the last day at like 12:30, this is our third day fishing. It was kind of slow the other 2 days because this storm came through. Everybody's asleep in the salon. They're passed out. People are seasick. It was fucking nasty. It was so nasty out. I'm the only dude on the back deck with the mate, and the rod fires. Now, the rules of the competition is as soon as you touch the rod, that's it. It's your fish. So if you're on a blue marlin, that's a 7-hour fight. So right before that, everybody's talking, oh man, I want to catch a wahoo. Wahoo's the best eating. If we catch a wahoo, we can get 70 grand because Michael Jordan's got the winning mahi right now, and you chop the pot with the mahi. As like, dude, we got to catch it. Well, the rod fires, and I'm the only one on the back deck, and I did one of these, and I looked around, I'm like, rod went off. All right, so I put on the belt, I started fighting it, and as it comes up, I mean, dude, this is probably, look, it felt like I was in like 30 footers. I'm real, and you would have thought I was on like Wicked Tuna or something. That's probably a 20-minute fight. And the comes up to the side of the boat, and it's this beautiful blue fish with stripes. Everyone's like, holy shit, it's a wahoo, it's a wahoo. And it goes and runs. Well, the thing about wahoo is they have razor sharp teeth. And we were not set up to wahoo fish yet. That's what we were getting ready to go do. And I'm reeling it in. and it's like literally catching a northern pike on like, 3-pound test mono. You know what I mean? It's like this is like if I get this thing in, like this is amazing. And it comes up to the side of the boat, and they're like, "You gotta hang on." I'm like dying, dude. I'm just like, all I can think is F Michael Jordan, 70 grand. And I'm reeling, dude, and I'm smoked. I mean, I'm drenched in sweat. This is the first week of August. I'm just dying. I'm reeling this thing. It comes up to the side of the boat, and the mate's like, "You gotta get it closer." I'm like, "Gas the damn thing." Gas it, and it comes up over the rail, and it lands on the deck, and I was like, "Oh my God, we just caught a $70,000 fish," because the likelihood anyone else to catch a wahoo is slim to none.
Yeah.
And all I could remember was like, "Oh my God, dude, I manifested this thing for the last several weeks leading up to this." I'm like, "Why didn't I write down why did we win winning white marlin?" But I was just so estatic. I'm telling everyone on the boat, I'm like, "I manifested this." They're like, "You're an idiot. Shut up." And like the mate's like, "I brought my crystals today," and everyone's like laughing at us. You guys don't understand. Like, I wrote this in this book and it happened. And we got back to the dock. It was the coolest thing. And it was the most insane experience. But then all I kept remembering is like, oh my God, this works. This provides clarity. Like, this is what it comes down to. Writing down what your goals are and what you're trying to do will bring those things closer to you. And if you write, "I want money," people might think you're selfish, but write it down. But then write, why do you want the money? What's the money going to do for you? How does that work? Guess what? Those opportunities will show itself to you.
Yeah. Dude, I was getting goosebumps as you were telling the story, and you had already texted me that back
Yeah.
when it happened, and
Yeah.
because it is true. So many people think it's like woo woo, and it's not. It's like it's focus. I can't even explain it all, but like Neville Goddard's got The Power of Awareness, and it's simple. It's basically that. Like and you don't have to do all the weird. Like just a simple journal, writing it down is huge. And dude, I have a similar story. I bought a 100-acre farm. I think it was 2020 as well, and I used to lease hunting around that farm. We called it Grandma's farm. There's 2 missiles out front, like somebody welded fake missiles, and we called it Missile Farm in Grandma's field. And I'm like, man, it'd be so cool to own that one day. And I never wrote that down. I wrote that I wanted to have my own land one day. And I say farm, it's not like a working farm. It's, woods, a place to go hang out with the kids, ride 4-wheelers. It's got a pond to fish. And I thought about that all the time. Then it came up for sale, and I'm like, but it was way high and all this stuff. And I just kept thinking about it. And again, I wrote similar down. I didn't write that farm down, but we ended up offering them. They wanted a bigger price with the mineral rights, lower price. It still sat. We offered them a lower price with the mineral rights and actually got it. And dude, it was a very similar thing. We didn't win money with. Well, technically I did, because the mineral rights actually ended up being something, and I ended up selling those off. And it's actually my best investment property that wasn't an investment property. So
Right.
that stuff is so real and so simple to do. And like you said, you just get clear on why. Like, I don't just want money. I want what money provides, like the freedom to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. And yeah, man, that's a
Well, like, but and that goes back to like the people that tear you down is they don't have a clear vision that they want. They have a clear vision of what their bosses want and what they're going to do to make their bosses successful, rich, time freedom, everything else. When people like, I'll give you guys a little hint. Like, the word "the Matrix" has been real hot since 2020, and it's like everybody's living in the Matrix. And if you don't understand, you're living in the Matrix first off. So
yeah,
I'll give you the hint, the clue, right? Like, the true definition of wealth is time freedom. The money doesn't matter. Like, the fact that I can take my girls to homeschool co-op last Friday and be there all day. Yeah, was I miserable because I had other plans because I was supposed to go golfing? Fine, whatever. But that's a selfish bullshit. The fact is, I could either golf or go hang out with my kids. I could go fish for a week, or I can go. You imagine like having to plan your whole vacation around like, man, I got this 1 week of vacation and I have to use it for the White Marlin Open. That's the only time I get off, and I have to sacrifice that instead of going to hang out with my family. Like that. Before we did this podcast, I went home. I went to the gym this morning. I went and had breakfast with my girls, and then they were headed out for the day to go do some homeschool stuff. And it's like, dude, like, time freedom is what it's about. Like, everyone thinks it's about money. It's not. It's about having your own freedom and not living in this matrix. And like, look, I'm as guilty as everyone else. I scroll my phone. Look, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I can tell you this much, like, you wanna say I was just talking to the barber, a little bit ago the other day. It was like I was like, "Dude," I said, "Do people still walk into the barber?" He's like, "No." I said, "Well, it wouldn't matter anyway." I said, "Because everybody's just sitting on their phones. Nobody wants to talk anymore. Like, everybody's
Yeah.
sucked into this everybody else's plan. Like, go out, have your plan. Go out and journal what you want. Like, bring
Yeah.
those opportunities to you, and maybe this could be true too. Maybe your opportunity is to go be a W-2 employee for someone, but have more autonomy or get
Yeah.
a big promotion at work to be the number 1 in charge or number 2 in charge. Manifest that shit, dude. Start writing that down because you know what? It will change your life. And if you feel successful, then everything else around you just gets better and better and better. And
Yeah.
that's why the people that tear you down is they're living in the matrix and they don't have a clear defined goal. They don't have a clear defined vision of what they want. For me, I have to journal it. Other people can just think about it. And there's other times that people need a whole vision board, which, dude, I've gone old school on some of this stuff. I'm journaling again. I stuck it's funny you say a farm. I got a homestead up here. I got a shore house. I got a sport fisher and an airplane. Like
Love it.
those are long-term goals, but you know what? Like, I get to look at it every day and go, "Damn, man, like, when fishing time's here, I'd love to be able to say, hey, Jimmy, like, I'm gonna fly up in my private plane." Not like, I'm not talking a jet, like, I wanna be able to fly it like a little
Yeah.
single engine plane, come get Jimmy and be like, "Hey, you wanna go fish with me? I'll come pick you up, shoot you
Yeah.
at the beach, let's go offshore fish, I'll fly you back home." Like, dude, that's
Yeah.
sick, you know?
Yeah.
But creating those things, and too many people tie it to, like, I want to be successful so I can go sit on the beach and do nothing all day. Dude, I tell you, I promise you, I did it.
Yeah.
I took off a whole month when COVID happened, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the beach for a whole month because you can get good deals. I got down there by week number 2. I was like, kill me, dude. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Look, you still need purpose, but you also need the bandwidth to go out and enjoy freedom and time and bandwidth.
Yeah.
Everybody does that in different ways, and I can tell you right now, if you're not able to do that in your job, then you're not successful. You might make
Yeah.
$1 billion, but if you don't have that time freedom, you're not successful, in my opinion.
Yeah. Amen to that, man. I love it. I love that you shared that, you got into that. And that's something I didn't even know, I didn't know you did that stuff. It's something, like I said, I do more now. I do the journal and write things down, those goals. But it's another thing, a little taboo to talk about sometimes because so many people are like, oh, woo woo, like I brought my crystals and my whatever, but it's just a simple thing to do. So
Hey, man, look, whatever works for you, whatever gets you up every day to be like, you know what, this is
right.
what motivates me. I gotta hold this little green emerald elephant to make me feel safe and secure, and that abundance of money will come to me, or this citrine will show up and bring me money. I don't know if any of it's true, but you know what? If I'm having a shitty day, I grab it. I'm like, if it's good for me, it's good for my business. I will be
Yeah.
abundant and flush with cash. I don't know if it works, but you know what it does? It calms you down, resets your nervous system. It's no different than the fire department. I'll give you a little story. You show up on a fire, I can promise you it's pure chaos. It's literally chaos. It's like pure chaos.
Yeah.
You are in control of this situation and you need to take a deep breath. So whether you're the guy driving, you're the incident commander, you're the guy that's going to go in and put the fire out, or you're the guy that's going to go rescue the person, you got to get there and compose yourself. Jimmy's yelling at me. My wife and kids are in there. All right, dude, chill. I got this. And meanwhile, it's the worst thing in the world for you. And if you're having that moment, you need to find a place of zen, whatever you want to call it, and ground yourself and say, okay, I got a job to do. I got to go in and find these kids. I got to go in and put this fire out. I got to go in and make sure my men are squared away. And I think that's a lot of what the fire department taught me, of like being able to grasp, and like, you have a fire burning in your business. Like, I just had one this morning before we hopped on this podcast. I'm buying a 55,000 square foot building that we're turning into a piece of, it was an office building that's being converted to flex. The guy currently has a few flex tenants. I have a tenant that has a 5-year lease with 1-year renewals. I get an estoppel today, which basically is a thing that says the tenant says everything that the landlord says is squared away and true. Great. Well, I send it to the lender, and I go back and read the email, and I go, oh, shit. Well, the guy said, I'm actually on a month-to-month lease. I don't know what this guy's talking about. Now my whole deal might blow up. And I was literally yelling and screaming this morning. But you know what I did before I called the lawyer and called the broker and called everybody else involved? I yelled and screamed at the wall, said all kinds of stupid stuff. The guy that works in my office with me was like, you all right? I'm like, yeah, I feel better now. Hey, lawyer, I got this situation. How do you want to handle it? I've already yelled and screamed at the wall. There's not much you can say to piss me off. Is this deal going to happen or is it not? All right, I'll work on it. Call the broker, same thing. But you know what? I had to take that time as time to get the composure. And you say it's foo-foo. I agree it's foo-foo because we're macho men. We're blue collar guys. But listen, you gotta go cry it out. You gotta hold a crystal. You gotta journal, whatever it is. Go do it. Drugs, sex, and alcohol, I don't know, maybe are the best thing in the world. But look, if that's what you got to do to cope yourself and you can live with it and do it, then go do it. Like, whatever you got to do to calm yourself down, go do it.
Yeah.
It'll all work out in the end.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, I want to be respectful of your time here. What are a couple, as we wind it down here, what are a couple tips? So journaling, we'll throw that one out. A couple other tips that people looking to change, people looking to take a next step. They hear this podcast, they get motivated. What are a couple simple steps some people could take next to journaling to get to that next level or step out of their comfort zone to try something different?
Well, the first thing, I don't want to get lost, and I just want everyone to remember this. You can do all this journaling. You can touch the crystals. You can go hug it out. You can meditate, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. Go swing the damn bat. Get up there, get to the batter's box, put yourself in the game. Go swing the bat. Go look at deals. Make offers. You can bail out of an offer. It sucks. You might lose some credibility. You can't do it all the time, but dude, get in the game. Go talk to people. Go do it. Go to local meetups. Go join a coaching group. Go do whatever you got to do. I will say, before you do a bunch of that, go take a DISC personality test. I think it's one of the most powerful tools that are out there. I love doing it. I love trying to guess, this guy's a whatever personality type, and then I tell him to go take it, and you're like, oh, I was spot on or I wasn't. But that's going to tell you your strengths and your weaknesses. And if you can identify those things, execute on your strengths, hire or partner for your weaknesses. And having that DISC personality test, I think, is one of the most powerful tools you can do, because then when you're looking at deals and you know you're a cautious personality type, you need to find a way to motivate yourself to get over the hump to actually go do a deal. Yeah, it's a C personality type. And S personality type is a trust to verify. Go find a property that you can do that's not going to kill you, that you can be like, I can trust the process. I verified the process. Now go do another one. Guys that are like me, that are a little more D&I, a little more wild card, you're going to go out and do a deal and you're like, all right, I figured it out. Let's get to the next one. But, your I people are sales type personalities. Yeah. But maybe never take action. They just talk about it and they're never about it. And then D's are decision makers. And that's usually the best personality type to be an entrepreneur. But everything in between, you can become an entrepreneur. You just need to identify what works or doesn't for you and get out there, go talk to people, go learn from Jimmy, go talk to him about his first deal and ask him what he was scared shitless about. Go find a group like the mine that you can get on there and go talk about it and like learn about commercial real estate and figure out what your pitfalls are. I mean, I've been in this game and this is the first time I have had an estoppel potentially blow up a deal, but I'm learning about it and sharing about it with everybody that I know, because this is a very important thing going forward and the lenders rely on these things. And just being around the right people. Don't be in the room with the tear down people. Be in the room that are going to build you up and want to see you succeed. You'll find out the more success you have, you get around people that have equal as much success. They're not there to tear you down. They're there to build you up, because a rising tide floats all boats. That's my Hestism for the day.
Yeah. Love it, man. That's awesome. That's great advice. Learn about yourself, take some action, journal, and get rid of the negativity. Love it. That's a great way to wind this thing down. Now you got your own podcast and you're on the socials. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, best place to find us. You want to learn more about what we do is go to equitywarehouse.com. You can check out case studies of how we co-invest and co-lend with all of our friends and family. Other than that, I'm on all the social sites under Equity Warehouse. I'm the most active on Instagram. If you want to catch up and talk, it might take me a little bit to get back to you, but I will catch up with you. You can find out more about our podcast and everything else from all those different sites. And if you really are looking for some sort of coaching, or you're local in the Philadelphia area, we do have a local meetup. And we also have CRE-syndicate.com, where we case study and show everybody how we're trying to buy $50 million of commercial real estate by the year's end. I might fail miserably, but we're about 25 million bucks. Well, we'll be about if this closing happens, we'll be about 20 million bucks in with another deal pending. But I don't think it's going to close this year. But either way, we're going to continue to show people how we're doing it, and that's really what it is. Give you the information, and that's really it. So we're out there. If you ever see me at an event, I'm a hard face to miss. I'm always happy to talk, and love to see everyone's success. And maybe I'll get the magic invite out to your meetup, and I'll have to come present one of these times. I know Farling will want me to come out there and golf. Hopefully I have the plane, so it's an easy flight. We can do it all in one day. So
Awesome, dude. I love that idea, actually. So I read us an excuse to get to hang again.
hell yeah, let's do it. I'm in. So
Well, I appreciate you, Ian. Again, you're one of my favorite people in the industry. Glad we got to connect that first time. And yeah, I'll post that stuff in the notes too for people to find you. And I encourage everybody to go check you out and what you're doing. So appreciate your time today as well.
appreciate you. It was an honor, and look forward to the next one.
All right, man. Thank you.